Call the meeting to order.
Yeah, I will definitely say.
Please turn your devices off or set them on vibrate so they don't go off in the middle of a discussion. And then once you've done that, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Now we'll have roll call. It's my understanding Councilor Burkett has a family situation tonight, but will join us if necessary by a phone call. Councilor Murray?
Here.
Councilor Miera?
Present.
Councilor Woolman?
Here.
Councilor Knight?
Here?
Councilor Alsabrook?
Here.
Thank you, sir. Have you guys had a chance to look over the agenda?
Yes.
If so, and if you don't have any addition or changes, is this okay? I'll put you down here. That's fine. Okay. I need a motion to approve the agenda and a second, please.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
So I have a motion from Councilor Knight and a second from Councilor Woolman to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So now we'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Curry?
First person I'll call on as normal is Tanya. For this COVID, Omicron, flu update.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilors, Administrator Curry. Can you hear me okay? I'm having some bandwidth issues today.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Tanya.
Let me take the camera off and see if that helps. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, we're heading into November, which is when we're kind of expected to be peaking with COVID. Right now, we've only had 23 cases in October, lab reported. I know there's a lot more out there. I hear of people every day who've done homes with COVID. So we're averaging a 0.92 cases per day. The state is really seeing some increase. We are now, today we had 418 cases and hospitalizations are going up. We have 123 people in the hospital today with COVID. Yesterday was 104. But when we look back, we were in the 80s. We were below 100 a week ago. Deaths have declined. We had one today and one yesterday. But remember, deaths follow 2 to 3 weeks post cases. They take about 2 to 3 weeks. The positivity rate for today, the state was 11.18. For Sandoval County, it was 10.94, which the highest we've been recently is 14%. We are green, the state of New Mexico, we are green on the state CDC public map. We are still red and have been we're orange high and have been for quite a while. If you have not got a flu shot, you should do that now. If you're over 65, it's recommended you get the senior flu shot or the high dose shot. If you haven't got your Omicron booster, you should be thinking about that. The data coming out right now, 4 months post-vaccine, people are definitely not as protected against the Omicron variants. I know last time we spoke, I talked about we weren't looking at a whole bunch of different variants coming out. And now there is a plethora of variants that are being watched, including BA 2.75, which I believe is now called BF7. We have XBB. We have a whole bunch coming out that are being watched. That are Singapore is having a dramatic increase of COVID right now, and they are a highly vaccinated country. 91% of the population is fully vaccinated. I do not know their status on if they're doing any bivalent boosters. So definitely be thinking about getting your booster and timing your booster. Remember, it takes about 14 days to get your maximum level. We are at 51 monkeypox cases in New Mexico. Last week, I believe we were at 42. However, it has been slowing down. The ring vaccination effort has been working. And I'll be happy to, we're still vaccinating 3 days a week at the station. And this Sunday, we did a combined flu COVID shot clinic where we had 157 different vaccinations. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You guys at the Indy have been covering really well, which this movement.
Questions?
Tanya, you might,
There's an election update.
next clinics are filling up fast.
My clinics, they tend to, I open them usually next week on Thursday. Today we still had spots available this morning, but it filled by the time we opened today. We are starting to see more of the kids come in. 5 to 11-year-olds can now get a bivalent booster. If you're over 6, you can choose Moderna or Omicron, Moderna or Pfizer, I'm sorry, as your Omicron booster. 5-year-olds still have to do the Pfizer as their booster shot. It's this, but they are filling. The kids aren't filling as quickly, but they're starting to fill. And Thursday may already be full, but I'll look at it and then I open some more, and then Saturday, but they do fill quickly. We try to run about 50 a day every time we run them.
It's too much not to let.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Wanted to give a quick update. Meadowlark pathway is still ahead of our agenda. We set up meetings now, with at least 3 landowners over there discussing about their site vision areas that they're at in the easements. I know it's been a long and torturous process for many of you, but we are moving forward on it, and we're just moving slowly and making sure that we hear the concerns of the neighbors, and they understand the concerns of the site vision that we have to have at each intersection. I want to remind you that on Monday night, Trick or Trunk will be taking place, and Lynn has spent a lot of effort in it to this. It was a great success over last year, and looking forward to it. Please come out if you can. There might be a balloon or 2 inflated to add to the fun of it.
It's again justified.
Now, turn over to Randy Audio.
Before you start, I think it's trunk or treat. No, you said trick or trunk or something like that. I think it's,
I stand corrected.
okay, I think it's trunk. I was told that. Yes, very good.
Ron, I just wanted to ask you, do you think you have an estimated completion date for Meadowlark? I mean, I know things are moving slowly, but do you have a completion date that you think you might be able to make?
I can't do that, Counselor, because until we have these conversations with these folks, some of their reactions will depend on the completion date. But if we were to get, this is hypothetical, if we were to get approval for the 3 that are out there, the project itself should move fairly fast. And conversations with Michael and Steve Groman have indicated that we could move as fast as to 90 to 120 days. But hypothetical, so.
Thank you, Ron. I wanted to make a statement on the record tonight. We've been presented with a petition from Mr. Huff Flora, and he's been making comments in public comment to the council. Many of you may have heard them for many years now. And I want you to understand our position as we go into this discussion tonight of this petition that will come up with his presentation. And I wanted to read this statement. During the past 3 years, Mr. Flora has regularly spoken at village council meetings about his cases against the village. He has said derogatory and ugly things about the village and its personnel. Mr. Flora has relied on stating his opinion and accusing the village and its personnel of misconduct. Many of his statements are not true. In fact, Mr. Flora submitted a request for subdivision of his land to the village. That subdivision was granted Mr. Flora appealed the decision to the State District Court because of the conditions placed on the subdivision and the allegations he now continues to bring in public. The judge held against the Huff Flora's arguments and ruled that the village legally and properly subdivided their land. The judge's decision was appealed by the Huff Floras and is pending in the Court of Appeals. The Huff Floras filed a second case, which is stayed until the appeal is decided. The village remains open to discuss resolving these cases. Mr. Flora has a right to speak his mind, but he has no right to slander and defame village employees with false allegations. The village is responsible for management and oversight of our employees, and the village stands behind the conduct of the Planning and Zoning Administrator, Lori Stout, in the Huff Flora case. The village and Ms. Stout will continue to do our best for the citizens of the village and the planning and zoning process. In every planning and zoning case, Ms. Stout and the village are the referee, weighing and balancing the interests of an applicant with the interests of the neighbors in the village. We continue to invite the Huff Floras to come to the table with the village to try to solve their issues. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy. I would only add to that, as the direct supervisor for Lori Stout, we also she reports regularly to me, gives me an update on her job, gives me an update into her work, and we stand behind her. She is a quality employee that adds value to this village.
Okay. It's time for Councilors Forum. This section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session of the council meeting. And first, I'll call on Councilor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I have two questions or statements here. I just wanted to say thanks to whoever put the lights on in front of the chambers here. I was having a hard time the last 6 or 7 months or a year even getting to my car after the council meetings because it was so dark out there. So those lights have really helped, and I appreciate that. The second thing I wanted to ask was something of our police chief, if I could ask him a question.
Chief Manji Capra. Thank you, sir.
Hi, Chief, thank you. You know, I've had more than a few people come up to me about the issues along Corrales Road as far as parking. And statements said to me that our policemen are saying that they cannot give a ticket or citation because it is a state-owned road. And I just want to make sure that everybody is clear about this, because to me, our policemen have the rights to give tickets on Corrales Road. I see them pull over people and give them speeding tickets or whatever. So obviously, they could give a ticket or a citation to someone who is illegally parked. So could you, can you make it black and white for me, Chief, about what people on Corrales Road can expect?
Mayor, we make an exception to the discussion for debate there in the council's forum.
I know this is just a question that she wanted to ask you. If you can't answer it, yes or no, then you can discuss this with her at a later date. If you don't feel like this is the appropriate venue.
No, I'm just making sure that,
It's okay with me if you want to do it. Now, if you don't, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So if
all
you're
right.
okay with it, Mayor, Council.
And I know I've asked you before, we talked on the phone about this.
Yes, so just to make it perfectly clear, Council Knight, Mayor and Council, so for us police officers, we in fact have authority to enforce laws on the law of Corrales Road, parking violation. When somebody does call in a parking violation, they don't get the response which they believe they should have from the responding officers, then they should call back and ask to have a conversation with that officer. If they still don't see that they believe to be an appropriate response, there's a chain of command, there's a process. They can call back and ask the sergeant, maybe, so they start and straight back there, and they corner the room, and he's very receptive. All the officers on the job, they may be a delayed response because of what I already called. Okay, I'm not making excuses here, I'm just explaining some realities that we may have When they get there, not be saying the same thing. Things. Maybe looking at the vehicle, which they believe is delivered part from the name, which they believe is blocking the driveway or access, and the officer might not see that as they drive by. So there are a multitude of things, but to answer the question, yes, the officers can take enforcement action after also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much for answering that. Counselor Wallman.
Mayor and councilors, I'd like to take note of the passing of Jim Belshaw, who died at home a week ago Saturday. A longtime resident of Corrales and a constituent of my district. He was well known to those in the Albuquerque area for his insightful columns in the Albuquerque Journal. This is particularly true when writing as Dr. Swamp Cooler, the Chicago native lamented over his semi-annual travails during changeover season. Locally, we look forward to the beginning of July when his column annually declared the Corrales 4th of July parade to be the best in the country. Our thoughts are with Liz Staley, his spouse and partner of 36 years. May his memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, we'll move on to Corralinos Forum. This section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There's a 3-minute time limit. Please be civil and respectful.
I'm going to bring this microphone over to the podium because that one does not appear to be working for our people at home. So
Okay.
I'm going to do that real fast.
Boy, now that's a cord.
Yes. This is why this one is so long. For that.
That's our backup, huh?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Kurtzlord.
For 40560 Andrews Lane, Corrales, can you hear me? Corrales. I have to beg to differ to what was Randy Otto just said, because in our preliminary plat and before our preliminary plat, we were approved 3 different times with a 20-foot road easement. He's saying that the plat was approved. The plat was not approved with the 20-foot roadway. That's what the whole argument is about. It was approved 3 different times in 3 different categories. Now, if you want to believe Lori Stout and her lies, then you just go ahead. But what she has done, we have her falsifying documents, we have her falsifying the meeting minutes, we have her falsifying extortion, corruption, fraud. The falsifying the minutes is crazy. When you go into this, you see it. It's here. It's what she kept out of the written minutes that count. Okay. What she kept out in this meeting right here, she kept out the approval of the 20-foot road. And when Commissioner Serena was brought to testify on our behalf, he was denied by Joanne Rourke to testify on our behalf, violating our due process rights to fair trial. When we first had our first meeting, we were denied to speak in our first meeting. That's violating our due process rights. We hired Tom Patrick as our surveyor, not our representative or our agent. We had every right to speak in that, okay? Lori Stout, you guys have not heard the recordings. I have a Lori Stout, okay? You have not seen my evidence, and you're gonna back her on this corruption? That is ridiculous. And what's gonna happen is, if you don't fire her, there's gonna be 200 signs lining this village. Corruption in Corrales is real, because it is. One other thing I like to bring up is, Stuart Murray, you are my district representative, are you not?
Yes.
Then I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself so you can listen to my story and hear the whole facts, all the facts. I have evidence on recordings. I have evidence in all the documentations of the fraud, extortion, IFRA violations. For 810 days, the village refused, even the Attorney General refused to give the Attorney General the letters they requested. They requested the village attorney's opinion letter. The village refused to give them that letter. Why did they refuse to give them that letter? Because Sue Ann Dirks wrote a letter, falsified the document here, wrote that letter, and gave it to us. that is exactly the opposite of what the attorney said. Exactly the opposite. When she handed us that falsified letter, we knew it was falsified. That's why we put the request in, and for 800 and some odd days. They still, to this day, refuse to give us Candace Cordova's resignation letter that states in her resignation letter, you guys got it, that she is resigning because you guys are not treating us right, okay? That's in her resignation letter, okay? That's an IPA request that I have been denied, and still, to this day, I have been denied that record.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's 4.5 years.
Time is up, sir.
You have 250 people sign that petition. 250.
Time is up. Thank
So
you.
you know the corruption is real.
Thank you. What you got?
Next up is Patty Carroll.
Good evening, your name and address for the record, please. I'm Patty Carroll. I live at 230 Coronado Road. Mayor, councilors, I want to start by saying that we at the equestrian community really value all of your ongoing support. I think that the equestrian community is part of what makes Corrales so unique. We had 3 of my friends voting on horseback today. Just where else would you find that? It's really cool. I'm here mostly to let you know that we have had to change the plans for the parade that we discussed at the last meeting. It became too costly with the additional insurance that was required and all of the other things. We figured in the amount of time that we had, we couldn't pull together the finances to be able to pull that off. So we have going back to the way we did it last year, and during the pandemic, it was the ride-in roundup. We're gonna try to make it a little more festive, a little more fun. We're gonna have, it is still the food and toy drive, and we're in collaboration with the Corrales Equestrian Advisory Commission, the Corrales Horse and Mule people, Main Street Corrales, and the fire department. We're all working together to make this be real fun. It's going to be on Sunday, November 27th. That's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Hoping that then Black Friday will capitalize on people going out and buying lots of fun things to donate. It's going to run from 1 to 3. We're going to have Santa, an equine costume contest and prizes. So it should be lots of fun. We're very excited about it. And then we're going to start planning now for the parade, the Christmas de los Caballos parade for next year, so that we'll have all our ducks in a row. Okay? And one more word, lighted crosswalks. That's it. Okay, next up is Marty Santos. Marty, if you could also please state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Marty Sanchez. I reside at 338 Wagner Lane. I have lived in Corrales for pretty close to 50 years, and I taught here at Sandoval Elementary prior to that. I know now it's called Corrales Elementary, but back then it wasn't. I have seen Corrales go through a lot of changes over the years, as most of you have. Well, many of you have. One thing that I've never really been clear of after we incorporated was just how things are run in our village. I've been to several of these meetings, and quite frankly, I really honestly haven't seen the steps involved and where the buck stops. I have some questions for you all tonight. One of them has to do with the P&Z. Who oversees the P&Z? You all, councilors? And I understand our district representatives are supposed to bring things to you, but when, in this case, Mr. Flores is not able to get to his representative because of conflict of interest, where does he go from there? There's obviously a dispute here. possibly more than one. As a Corrales citizen, I'd like to see a little bit more, no, a lot more clarity, transparency, and attention to those of us who've been in the village for our entire lives, if not most of my adult life. I do understand that Stout was placed in that position. Did she apply for it? What are her outstanding attributes that placed her there? I really have questions that I would like some answers. And if you all would like to provide those with us, to give us those answers, please look at Mr. Floral's evidence. It is not nonsense. It's things that we all need to open our eyes to. We can't close it any longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Myron Clark.
I have nothing to say. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. That was just a sign.
Oh, okay.
First time here.
Oh, we're glad you came.
Welcome, yes.
Welcome.
Okay. Then, next would be Melissa Morris. And you can also state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Melissa Morris. I live at 44 Calle Maria in Corrales. I'm a 13-year resident of Corrales. I've had many opportunities to work with Lois Stout in the past, and at all times I've found her to be pleasant, efficient, hardworking, well-informed, and professional. I have never known her to be rude. She has worked many, many hours beyond those normally required of someone in her position, solely to ensure that our village government runs smoothly and in accordance with ordinances adopted by this council. As part of her work responsibilities, Ms. Stout has, on occasion, had the difficult job of giving unwelcome answers to village residents who may have a desire to take steps in development of their property which would be in violation of our ordinances. Ms. Stout does not have the power, however, to make any changes or exceptions to the ordinances on an applicant's behalf. For this reason, she's often the target of the displeasure and sometimes the hostility of those that she is required to advise. Ms. Stout may have as good as or better than an understanding and knowledge of the ordinances of the village of Corrales as most anybody in here. She can answer almost any question, and if she doesn't know the answer, she'll find it for you very quickly. She's a great benefit to Corrales, and we are lucky to have her. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I got a phone call from Judy today to time with me, and I said, here.
Could you turn your mic up, please?
I guess it's not working, so. Rudy Perez. Then last will be Ken Detloff. DeHoff, I'm sorry, DeHoff. And you can also state your name and address for the record, you'll have 10 minutes.
Good evening, my name is Ken DeHoff. I live at 66 Bad Coyote Place. I think you all know me. If you don't do it, you'll never get.
Excuse me, point of order, Your Honor?
Yeah.
That is how Ms. Stout confronted me when she rejected our first application on July 19th. The verbal F-bomb is the entirety of her official act of rejecting our first submission. I ask you, what kind of organization allows, even encourages verbal assault as valid official government behavior? I have here my final permit. It's dated July 20th. I have here my final plans. They're dated August 2nd. Can any of you explain to me why these don't match? And why did you, the council, tell the judge under oath that these approvals happened July 21st, when that date doesn't appear anywhere in any official document. I ask you, what kind of organization does not competently track the dates and specifics of their official acts? The last time I was here, July 20, 2021, 6:30 p.m., my wife and I spoke about the 2 rejections from Ms. Stout. Why did you, the council, tell the judge under oath that our comments from that night somehow justifies Ms. Stout's second rejection, when you know our second rejection had already happened 3 hours before we made those comments to you? It is a problem for you that none of you can point to anything concrete stating exactly when our second rejection occurred or why. Because Mrs. Stout's organization doesn't track that. Again, I ask you, what kind of organization fabricates false statements, false timelines, and false facts in order to justify their actions? My time is short, but you know I could go on. In fact, I have. I compiled 8 misstatements you have made to the judge under oath. You can find them on my website along with the proof in the record at badcoyotefarm, all one word, .com. The failure to properly record your official acts, the use of intimidation, and the willingness and apparent proficiency of fabricating facts all point to rot in Ms. Stout's organization.
Thank you.
I ask you one more time.
Time is up, sir.
What kind of organization does these things?
Time is up.
My answer is an incompetent
Time is up. Sit down.
run by an incompetent administrator overseen by an uncaring and malicious government.
Oh, it's another guy.
You need to sit down,
That does these terrible
sir.
things. I strongly
Oh,
support
cops there.
in his effort.
Or sit down.
Take me to jail. Go ahead.
No, you just need to sit down.
He is telling the truth.
Sit down.
Because
I'm telling you.
Sit down.
my court case.
Sit down.
lied to the judge.
It is time to sit down. You had your moment. Sit down.
She's lying to you, council members. She is lying to you, council members.
Sit
and
down.
You're backing her up. She is corrupt. We have the evidence right here. Look at it. Look at the evidence. The people have seen the evidence and they are doing nothing about it.
My apologies. So I'll take this brief respite that we have to recognize 2 of our representatives here in the audience. Kathleen Cates, who's running for our local representative, and Catherine Brook. Jeez. I had a little, brain fart there.
Make it work.
Who's our county commissioner. Thank you, Chief.
Go.
Okay, well, that was interesting. So I guess unless somebody has any other comments, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do you have any more comments, Melanie? Okay. Okay, so the consent agenda, have you guys had an opportunity to look at the consent agenda?
Mayor,
I
I
need a
move we
motion
approve,
to approve, please.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Stuart Murray to approve the consent, excuse me, John Alsobrook.
That's fine.
I'm sorry, John. And a second from Councilor Woolman.
I get paid the same no matter what.
So I'm going to take a roll call vote since we have one resolution on there sponsoring with Corrales Main Street, the annual Corrales Starlight Parade. How do you vote? Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Miller?
Yes, sir.
So do we have Councilor Burkett? Okay. Then we'll move on. We have no items removed from the consent agenda. So under new business, we have approval of First Responders Day proclamation, of which we have some really good first responders. So I would, So I would like a motion to approve our First Responders Day proclamation.
Mayor, I so approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? And I have a second from Councilor Knight. Any discussion?
Oh, my God.
I would just like to say we have some really wonderful first responders. Our fire department and our police department are excellent and continue to excel. We are safe. In some point in time, we'll be safe not only from crime, but also from fire, I hope. Safer from fire. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to just take note that several years ago, Chief Martinez was recognized by his peers as the Fire Chief of the Year. And also, Tanya was recognized as the EMT Person of the Year. Again, with one of the lowest crime rates in the state, I think we're in pretty good hands.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have no negatives, so the First Responders Day proclamation is approved. Next, we have consideration, action, and approval of Resolution 22-60, directing publication of a notice of meeting and intent to consider adoption of Ordinance 22-04, authorizing the Village of Corrales to enter into an agreement with the New Mexico Environment Department for the purpose of obtaining project funds in the amount of $75,000 for Project Clean Water State Revolving Fund number 123, design of fire suppression line, as approved by NMED, declaring the necessity for the funds and prescribing other details concerning the funds.
I move we approve Resolution 2260.
Okay, so and that resolution allows us to go ahead and publish and post the ordinance. Okay, it can be a little bit confusing there.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion or comments? Councilor Murray, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have approved Resolution 22-60, which is to post a notice of intent to consider adoption of Ordinance 2204. Next is consideration, action, approval of Resolution 22-61, directing publication of a notice of meeting and intent to consider adoption of Ordinance 22-05, authorizing the Village of Corrales to enter into an agreement with the New Mexico Environment Department for the purpose of obtaining project funds in the amount of $75,000 for Project Clean Water State Revolving Fund 124, design of wastewater system as approved by NMED, declaring the necessity for the funds and prescribing other details concerning the funds. This is basically planning additions to our sewer line.
Move adoption.
So I have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Councilor Miera made the motion and Councilor Knight seconded. Any further discussion? If not, how do you vote, Councilor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Yes.
Councilor Murray?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm actually going to ask our village administrator to enter into this discussion, which is an approval of a real estate purchase agreement between Michael Anderson on his own behalf as trustee for the Maxie L. Anderson Marital Trust and the Village of Corrales.
This is a document, an offer document from the village to the Anderson family for the purchase of that property that is just north of the post office. We've discussed this in the past. It's approximately 1.9 acres. There's an easement that runs through it. The price that has been put together on the offer is $475,000, including all closing costs that the village will pay for. We estimate that the closing cost will range between $8,000 to $15,000. I have had preliminary discussions with the Anderson family, and at this point, they seem acceptable to this offer. But of course, they can't answer to this until the council has made this offer official. I worked with Patrick Trujillo and Randy's firm to get this document prepared and entered into discussions with Michael Anderson. Michael Anderson is basically the single person on this. He has 3 siblings, and they are all in conjunction with him, power of attorney. His mother, the initial properties, there were 2 different pieces of it. One was the Anderson Marital Trust, and one was after Mr. Anderson passed away, the other went into a Patty Anderson Trust, which Michael controls both of those. And working with Patrick, there was no problem with the way that was split. Patty Anderson passed away within the last year, so she is not part of the discussion on this. And Michael is executive of the estate. So that in a nutshell is the offer.
So what we need is an approval of the real estate purchase agreement between us and the Anderson family. Any further questions? Yes, sir.
So this does not include any water rights at all? Is that-
There are no water rights. Okay. Correct? Yes, sir.
Ron, could you discuss the easement and what other facilities per se are on that property, either behind, to the east, to the west of the land?
There are two homes to the west. They are not equal. If you look at the map, the property that's closer to the north is a little further into, closer to Corrales Road. The one on the left, as you're looking at, is a little further back. The easement is approximately 2/3 of the way over on the property. It sits 2/3 of the way over, looking at it from the north. We also have direct access to the Jones property that's directly next to it. So we'll have a contiguous property there to the Public Works area, the Jones house, and also the Parks and Rec. But
Yes, sir.
essentially,
Councilor-
there's not much on the property.
Councilor Miera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I know we talked about that before, the easement. Just simple question, usually there isn't, but there are no restrictions to that easement on how we utilize it, the village?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Alsabrook.
Just a very minor question about the neighbors. Who owns the land for the post office? Is that the federal government? Is that privatized? Who owns the post office?
I would
land?
assume the federal government owns that.
I just don't know.
I would assume that the federal government owns it. I don't know.
I don't know the actual answer to that either, Councilor.
It was curiosity more than anything that'll sway my vote.
It doesn't really have, this doesn't really have an impact on that property, unlike the Wells Fargo Bank is paying an easement or a lease for part of the land that they are on or using of the Gonzalez property. Anyone else? Okay, so you ready to vote? Councilor Miera, how do you vote?
I move adoption.
Oh, that's right, we got to make a motion. Okay, you made a motion to adopt.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? You want a second? And I have a second from Councilor Woolman.
So even started, there may be another problem.
Who's that?
Was that Zach? Okay. Any further questions or discussion? You ready to vote? How do you vote, Councilor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsabrook?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
So it's been approved. All right, we move forward. So, any future agenda items you'd like to discuss? I'd like to, gosh darn it. I'd like to say Mr. Curry and I have been talking about the possibility of having another one of those work study sessions where we go over a few projects, because we have quite a few things that we're thinking of. They won't happen right away, but they're sort of in the future. If you would like that, we will come up with a firmer date. If you thought that was worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from you guys? Any specific thing you want to talk about?
Well, just that we're, Mr. Mayor, that we're not going to be doing our regular on the 8th, although everybody knows that. And we will be doing ours on the 15th. And that's about it. I guess we have a couple of memorials coming up, and looking forward to that one being on the 16th in Bernalillo, and one memorial that will be coming up on the agenda. No big deal.
Which one's that?
For the program in the, that's also in Bernalillo, but it's also in Albuquerque, PB&J.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They'll
I'm
be-
trying to think, when are we having a council meeting on the 16th? you know?
But they will be here, and they're quite proud of that memorial. They want to thank you in
Right,
advance.
Right. We hope that by the first part of the year, we'll have a little more information regarding our comprehensive plan. And that maybe we can start addressing that when we meet between December and January, last of December, first part of January.
Great.
Hopefully, we'll have more information on the animal services issue by probably the middle of January. Yes, sir.
Not to steal Councilor Murray's thunder, but on the crosswalks, on the lights, I was wondering if there's an update from the state, where we are on that, and we can move forward.
Oh, we're going through the trails, four-letter word, master plan. And some of the details in there have to be changed in order to reach the desired goals for the state and by the state. And so we're going through that document and seeing if we can edit it so that it can do that. And once we've had made those edits, we'll present them to the council to see if you approve of them. The problem that we've had, and we've discussed this before, when we refer to trails, we only can refer to trails that are in the entire property of the village of Corrales. If we refer to trails that connect to the Conservancy District or to the Highway Department, becomes very problematic because it changes the whole impact of how insurance looks at those things. And I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but we're glad to talk about that at length if you want, especially in this particular meeting. So once we do that, once we go through this master plan, the Trails Master Plan, we will bring those edits to the council for you to approve. And if you approve them, then we'll send them on up to the state to see if that's enough for them to make it happen.
One
Yes,
other
sir.
question, if I could. Is there any update on where we stand on the comprehensive plan of Mr. Cog?
Well, go ahead. Yeah, I don't have anything other than the fact that Laurie's been working on demographics.
When we met with Mr. Cog earlier in the year, they basically said that they will work with us in an affirmative way, but they want us to go ahead and start gathering data, demographics, which we have a lot of anyway, from the previous comprehensive plan and also from data that's current that we have. So
Census, yeah.
So Lori is putting that together, and as we put that together, then the next step after that, we'll be reaching out. One of the things we're considering doing is we have many committees that actually are doing things that are part of the comprehensive plan. So we're considering on how we get public input to the work. And we may choose to go through these committees because they cover everything from, as you know, the Boski Advisory to the library to many things in the village. Then we also want to consider what the council, if you have any particular desires or types of input that you want, whether it's from individuals that you know of, then we'll be seeking that from the council as well. We're working with Main Street also because of their economic impact that they try to have on the village and helping things out. So getting through the first step, collecting the data and looking at the demographics, and then as we move into the second step, which we anticipate will be in December, early part of next year is when we start getting input from the public.
So I would say, I would like for your vision, what is your vision down the road? 10 years. What do you want? 20 years? Just, these are, do you want them to say, Counselor Alsobrook, John Alsobrook thought of this way back in 2023. You know, think of what you think of as a vision for what you would like to see here and what would fit within the village the way it is. I mean, you know, we're not really truly an agricultural committee, but we are, I mean, a community, but we are an agricultural community. I mean, it's not like we have vast acreages of farms and ranches and whatever, but we do have a lot of people who do farm, who do grow their own food, who do sell at the growers market. And so that's always something we have to consider with regard to land use. Think about what kinds of services do you think the community would like to have. I know, I think Bill Woolman brings up the Salsey Park up there, and I think other people have been concerned the fact that we don't have a lot of parks here in our community. But is that something that a lot of people really do want? The other thing is I brought up in a note that I wrote about the density. How do we deal with the density here in the village? We have a number of people, a fairly significant number, who would like to live in more intimate areas. And I'm not quite sure how you do that. You know, you don't want to kind of demarcate them and set them off, but perhaps that would work best to cause less impact on other residential areas and farming areas. I don't know the answer. I think it's something that we should talk about, we should discuss, we should get input from the community. And we can do that through the Agricultural Commission. They can do it, they could sound out people. We can do it through Parks and Rec to see what people would like to see in the future as far as amenities for the village to be, you know, to be utilized by the citizens. Parking. What are we going to do about parking in the village? I mean, we have a lot of activities go on, and there, I mean, some parts of, I mean, sometimes it looks like we're at the airport and we got so many cars parked all over in certain areas. We need to do something to make it reasonable and safe for people to park in an area where they don't have to worry about somebody running them down. Anyway, that's sort of what, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Also, I kind of want to dovetail on Councilor Woolman about the crosswalks, because we've been working on this for 2 years, and I understand, Mayor, it's not you didn't start this process, but why is it the highway department is now bringing that up, that we need to have a trails plan incorporated in their decision? Because if we had known this 2 years ago, we could have probably had that and
So-
had it updated.
Let me answer your question this way. Many years ago, my wife and I bought a house. And we thought all we had to do was sign the papers and write a check, and, you know, we get a loan and we'd move into the house. And 3 or 4 days later, we got a phone call from the real estate and says, oh, you know, you need to fill out this paperwork. And so we'd go down and fill out all that paperwork, and we said, okay. So now, when are we going to, okay, 4 or 5 days later, we get another phone call. You need to come in here and do this. This has to be done before you can take possession of the house. And, you know, we probably had 3 or 4 of those phone calls like that before we ever got to a point where we could actually walk in the front door. So I'm not quite sure why that occurred back then. And I'm not answering your question about why it's occurring with the DOT. But another way that I think they work is they lose things and they request new stuff as a delaying tactic, because they don't even want to give us anything in writing. I mean, we ask them, tell us in writing, write it down, what we need to do to put a pathway in. And they won't do that. They'll show us pictures of what they would require, but they won't actually write it down so we can make a plan. So, you know, I'm a bit pessimistic about working with the DOT.
I totally agree with you, and I think we ought to be going through the Mid-Region Metropolitan Planning Organization if we need to. They can run interference for us.
We did talk to the MRPO or something.
Yeah.
And we said something like that to him, and he said, oh, no, we don't do that.
No, that's not what he told us. So, I
Okay,
mean,
there you go.
I attend the meetings, but that's not the message I'm.
Got to all get in the same room and listen to the same message.
I think that's a good idea. Also, I just want to bring up, is there a chance we will hear from the budget audit in December?
What?
The budget audit?
December, you think? I don't think so.
Or is that when they'll conclude their business and then they'll present? And
I I think they'll hopefully conclude it then. I think we're probably looking more at January. The one thing I would say, Counselor, is that this particular auditing firm, this is the second year that we've used them, and they're leaps and bounds better as far as timeliness goes on the preceding, the auditor that preceded them. So we have a deadline that they have to be finished either in late December or January, and they will be meeting that deadline. They were
Okay,
sure to
and
say
then
that.
we'll know for sure how much excess, how much we can spend on the Anderson property.
Well,
actually,
I know, we got that.
What that will give us is a final conclusive answer as to how much money we had left in our fund balances at the end of the fiscal year in June.
Okay, thank you.
So Melanie, do you have a note, do you have a memory or a note about when they said they would complete that? I mean, I'm with Administrator Curry that it's somewhere in December or January. I can't remember which one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, we were there. We remember that as well.
Okay.
Because I was there.
I have no doubt that they will meet that deadline.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody want to add any future agenda items or any further comments before we, oh gosh, we're at the end of the business session. Did you want to make any comment?
One of the things I neglected to report in the administrator's report is that EPA sent a contractor here on, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday of this week. No, sorry, last week. And the contractor went around the entire property and performed an assessment on it, and will get back with us approximately a month with the report.
This is the Jones property?
Right. And one of the things that they do when they're looking at this type of property, they don't just look at that specific property. They look at all the properties within a mile, essentially, and look to see if there's any environmental degradation that has occurred that may have migrated onto that particular property. Obviously, they analyze what's, any hazardous material that exists on the property. And then once they have that report, there are steps that we can follow after that as far as how we use that survey that they'll be producing. And the question that will come to the council will be probably timeliness. If we seek money from EPA, that's a longer process than if we try to do it maybe through Main Street through a 5013C or something like that. So, but we're glad that they were out here, because whatever we do going forward on trying to raise money to raise the house, going forward on that property, having the EPA kind of check mark it is helpful to us in the long run.
Did they give you any kind of a time frame?
A year. If we want to get money from them, it's basically a year. So that's way too long. So we need to have them finish their program and show us that we are doing our due diligence to make sure we're not causing any contamination of the groundwater, the soil, or whatever, and then follow their directions. This is the way you should probably go about it. But we also are talking about discussing the raising of the property with contractors to try to get an idea. We think we have an idea how much we're talking about, what it's going to cost. And I hate to use our money, but at the same time, if this is delayed an additional year, and even then we don't know if we'll get the money, because it'll be another cycle. Anyway, it'll come up again for discussion. Okay. Well, it appears we have completed the business part of the meeting. So I'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
I think I almost broke.